Hello and welcome back to the SecurityMetrics podcast. My name is Jen Stone. I'm one of the principal security analysts here at SecurityMetrics. Very excited about the topic today, and I think you're going to enjoy it too. I have Adrianus Warmenhoven with me. We're going to be speaking about a wide range of topics surrounding privacy, security, perhaps compliance. But first, I want to read you Adrianus's bio. He's a defensive strategist and threat intelligence manager at NordVPN. He's responsible for getting the most relevant indicators of compromise, or IOCs, malware samples, and their indicators, and generally mapping out the threat landscape for the company's customers. In the past, he's been involved in pioneering endeavors in IT since the early 1990s, collaborated in setting up the first Dutch anti-cybercrime branch organization for ISPs, as well as being part of the MT and lead designer for one of the first free ISPs in the Netherlands. Co-designer of supercomputing hardware and running projects for Dutch governmental organizations. For various international companies, he's done security reviews and given advice on how to deal with active threats and extortion. He has given various presentations at security conferences on security and privacy, as well as lectures at universities about these matters. Being an outspoken and strong privacy advocate, he fully understands the tension between the need for lawful interception and the need for anonymity on the internet. Adrianus, welcome and thank you. I'm honored that you would come on the show and talk to me today.
Thank you for having me. That sounds such a lot of what I've been doing. But the fun is, it's not even a fraction of what I've really been doing. Security is such a broad field, and that makes it fun, don't you think?
Absolutely. You know, and it also makes it hard to tell people when they say to me, I want to be in cybersecurity, what should I do? And I go, what do you want to do?
Yeah, anything.
What's your favorite part of cybersecurity?
Well, for me, it's to be honest, it's mostly the hacking part, but also the understanding part. I've also, which was not in the bio, but I've played around with airplanes and then airfields, with megawatt battery systems. You get to touch everything, and you can go into an in-depth in an organization and see where there's some hooks and some nooks and crannies where some adversary might hide in, or you can see in industry where there's some flaws. And the best part for me is I get to learn the profession of the people that I'm trying to protect, at least a big part of it. I get to see it from up close, because you really need to understand what's going on in the factory to be able to secure it. And
yes.
That's the fun part for me.
I like that as well. Sometimes we'll have a customer that says, well, we have retail fuel dispensers out in the middle of nowhere. Are you okay with reviewing those? And my answer is, well, of course, middle of nowhere, that sounds great. Let's do that.
Yes.
But at the same time, there are businesses and the way even similar businesses accomplish security against similar threats can be wildly different.
Yeah. It also is a bit about company culture. We get a lot of people that move freshly to, let's say, things like Azure or Google Cloud or Amazon. And you'll see that most of those will handle security measures quite similarly because they get the playbooks from those vendors. However, if you already have a big IT culture in your company or in your factory manufacturing processes, the security used to be bolt on. It wasn't something that's native. And you see that most newer companies, startups, they will do security native, also because of the playbooks of those vendors. But for most of the existing companies, it was a bolt-on part. It Frankensteined itself into the processes some way. It wasn't allowed to wreck the productivity, because productivity was still number one. And this is how you can see that not all security solutions are fit for every company.
Mm-hmm. And some of them don't even apply to them. And so sometimes I'll run into groups that say, well, we're following this security standard, but they've done it in odd ways because they were following a checkbox where
yes,
some of the things didn't apply, and so they created some issues for themselves because they didn't know how does everything fit together. I find that asking them for a data flow, what is the data you're trying to protect and how does it flow through your systems, tends to be one good way to look at how are they protecting it.
I totally agree. I really love. Now let me just make a small sidestep. I come from the hands-on IT and security and hacker guys, and from the age where people say use the source, look, and didn't write any documentation and kind of stuff. So I'm really practically minded, but I completely understand how frameworks like, for instance, ISO 27001. Mm-hmm. I quite like that because it's, in my opinion, it's small enough to be practically implemented, and you can ask exactly those questions as you just said. You can ask them in a nice compartmentalized way, and I can explain it to them why we are doing this, and it's a nice compact framework for that. And if you explain people why you are doing this, then they suddenly start understanding, oh, okay, this might even be beneficial for me. And I've seen more than one company transform by adopting the framework, but really getting into the spirit of the framework, not just, as you just mentioned, having a checkbox and getting the sticker from the auditor saying we are certified,
right.
But really understand why is it in this standard. This goes for all of these standards. Mm-hmm. They might look like a big bureaucratic exercise until you really understand what it's all about, and then you get into the spirit. Right. This is, in my feeling, how you should adopt a standard, not by picking one that has the most best reviews, or just read about it, feel if the framework fits with you and your motivation, and then get into the spirit of it, because then it will really help you.
Right.
That's my opinion.
No, I think you're spot on there. I think where people really shine is, like you said, getting the spirit of the security and using a framework to drive that sense throughout what people are doing. Where I find people struggle is where if they have to meet a specific compliance effort and they want to do it in the most minimal way possible, they don't understand the value of the framework in improving their security stance. I think that's where sometimes groups kind of fall into bad behaviors, and it typically starts at the C level. I know that you have done a lot of work with CIOs, CS, and CISOs on how to develop security programs. Is there a way to foster that appreciation for security at the higher levels, or is that something that is kind of inherent to an individual?
There's one part that's hard to change. If the C-level personalities do not have the whole of the company, but just driving for a specific metric like productivity or performance, it can be hard to get it in. But if you spend enough time with them and explain to them, and this is a trick I use, explain to them everything we don't cover with our security plan or checkboxes or whatever you want to call it, means an automatic risk acceptance by you, the rest of the C-level.
Yes.
You would be surprised how quickly you get a budget or projects up and running when you explain some of the risk. Like, okay, we don't have the backup. If we don't get a backup at the end of the year, or you don't allow it, the budget or any of the projects, it means you accept the risk for this. This is the risk. Wow, it goes really fast.
For sure.
But this is the thing you need to know.
That I love that, because that acceptance of risk should be at the C level. That's where business decisions happen. But a lot of times I see the security team or security guy or girl, the person in that position, they don't take the time to understand the business implications of the security challenges they're facing. Instead of expressing it in business terms so that risk can be recognized and the decision can be made at the right levels, they'll either try and make the decision themselves, which leaves that person open to some pretty high risk for the decision making, or it makes it so that things don't get addressed because they haven't been fully expressed at the business level. Do you see that kind of gap in a lot of the organizations that you've worked with?
Yes, I see a lot of CISOs or security officers. Well, the security officers are not a good example. I'll get to that. I see them being picked because they are good in cybersecurity. This is not a good fit. They can be a part of the security office or security group or whatever you want to call it, but the CISO, or the leader of the security team, it doesn't matter. Really needs to be a understanding the business first approach, and understanding that at the C-level, this person has a specific task, getting those things done. Not understanding and making the firewall rules themselves. If you're a small company, of course, this can be done. But I see these picks have been done in the last, let's say, decade because of the wholly wrong reasons. They just picked somebody who was an excellent pen tester or who might have guessed, I don't know, the CEO's password. And I thought, this is somebody who knows something about cybersecurity. We put this person in charge of it. And that person is either completely bored out of the skull or it is wholly overwhelmed with all this business stuff and process and all these things and vendors and law and everything else you have to do to get your cybersecurity to your business. So I see that quite a lot, and people who have been promoted from security upwards. For all the real cybersecurity people who really like to do all the hacking, incident response, malware analysis, either OSINT, whatever, I can tell you one thing, not a lot of you are going to be happy in a CISO position, even though it means more money and more prestige.
Yep.
For some people, I think, but you will not be happy there because none of the things that make you happy in cybersecurity, almost none of them, will be in that position.
Absolutely.
And when they do, it means, well, there's a big problem and you will have to do a crisis management at the moment, so you can't enjoy it anyway. So.
I agree. When I took this position, one of the things I was told was there is no management pathway from this position. And I said, good. I don't want one. And then less than a year later, they said, okay, so there's this management position. I said, absolutely not, because I'm finally old enough in my career to realize I love the hands-on problem solving. I love the interaction with the security and IT folks. I love being an individual contributor, and everything about the management and the business piece, it takes a different mindset, and it's not something that I have. I think there's some people who love that. They love the business management. They love the strategic thinking and the planning, and I just fall asleep in those meetings.
There's really a lot of reading all this. In Europe, it's all this EU stuff, regulations, which you have to keep track of, like GDPR, but you also need to check in which cloud we put stuff. Then we need, when we classify different pieces of data, which should not fall under the US Cloud Act, you have to be careful. So there's a lot of this. If you like tinkering with more abstract level stuff, security office, CISO, management, that's fine. But in all the time, I think I maybe spent a couple of days at the maximum, really at looking at some screens telling me something. Because for everything else, we had the SOC, we have the security office, we have all the other people doing their stuff, and we had lots of meetings. And this is also the boring stuff. You need to do keep your ISMS up to date and make sure it's kind of being a scrum master, but for security actually, because you say, okay, we have this incident. How far are we? Is it closed? Is it fixed? Is it mitigated? But the thing is, it's still a crucial thing to do.
Yes.
Even though it's boring to the hardcore cybersecurity people, it's still crucial to do, because it talks about rollouts over large parts of your company. It talks about getting budgets from CFO. it's about getting the right contacts with the secret services if you have a large company, because if there's a nation state entry, you don't want to have just any random cybersecurity company. You really want to have your country's secret services by your side. All of those things make it exciting again and make it very relevant. But it's simply a different breed of people that need to be sitting there.
And I think that's important for a person to know about themselves when they're first looking at cybersecurity as a career, because if you point yourself down a path that isn't going to be satisfying to you personally, it doesn't matter how much the people around you think it's a great idea or a great job, or it's what you personally can excel in and take on and enjoy work every day. I want to go back to what you said about GDPR and some of these things. I think a similar corollary here in the U.S. is HIPAA and the Canadian privacy law. These are regulations that a lot of groups, when they start saying, oh, now I have to look at regulations, how are they different from standards? One of the big things is requirements for security officers and or privacy officers. And like you said, sometimes the person who misses the meeting on who's going to be the privacy officer gets to be the privacy officer, right? And so when we look at what is I think it's because people don't understand the importance of privacy. This episode is brought to you by the SecurityMetrics Academy. If you're interested in learning more about cybersecurity, privacy, compliance, related topics, we have a ton of free courses. Just go to securitymetrics.com and search for the Academy. It'll come right up. What are your thoughts on privacy, security, and how those two things maybe fit together?
I'm in the lucky position of having been CISO for the largest wholly Dutch-owned cybersecurity company called the Sorion. And then after that, I was with Nord, and with Nord Security, NordVPN, we kind of try not to know anything about the users, so really privacy-minded. The difference was, as a CISO or as a security, you think that you want to see and know everything, like DPI, all the things, and I want logs of everything. And okay, the good thing is we had a really strong data protection officer or data privacy officer who was holding us back, but I can understand, because of security, you kind of want this whole panopticon style thing, where you can see everything happening, and then you can put in all the behavioral analysis against it. And from the privacy standpoint, you want none of these things to happen. And there needs to be a middle ground. I want to start first by setting one thing straight, what is, in my opinion, what privacy means. Privacy is not about things you want to hide, because hiding means, or it implies that the other side already has a right to see whatever I'm trying to hide, and post actively trying to put it away. To me, privacy means I'm in control of what I share, and it means if I have nothing to hide, I can share everything I want. And people that say to me, I have nothing to hide, I say to them, great, share everything you want. I don't care, as long as it's your decision. And this goes also for other things in privacy. If I don't want to share some things, I should not have to defend everything. Privacy should not be the things that I'm able to defend, because it simply should not be allowed by law for other people to simply grab everything. It's like you suddenly have to defend all the stuff in your house because, hey, you didn't defend me grabbing this vase or this laptop or whatever from your house. It's really an odd mindset that we have about privacy at the moment. So for me, it really means people should be in control of what they share. If they press the button saying, share everything, okay, that's your decision. Having said that, from a security standpoint, of course, we want to see everything. And the reason why we want to do that is because malware and hackers have become smarter. This is also one really important thing I say to people. our opponents are really smart people. They might have different life goals and different objectives, but they're also smart people. They're not dumb or some ogre somewhere. They're smart. So from security standpoint, you understand this, and you see that there's a lot of intelligence ways they get into our networks, into our machines, or they dupe people doing exfiltrations and that. So from a security standpoint, you want to see everything. And from a privacy standpoint, you basically don't want to see a thing unless somebody really expressly shares it with you. I found that those two can really sit next to each other because it's not a problem. Because you can, with your people, with the Sorion, we also had very privacy-minded people working with us. And what you do is you talk to them and you ask them, explain to them why they should agree to share some of their, at least business traffic, or have a DPI installed. And if they say, I don't agree, then you explain the problem. Like, okay, that means from your machine, I cannot see if there's specific patterns of or behavior. Like, let's say, for instance, your system sends data to a non-existent network printer at 3 o'clock in the weekend, at 3 o'clock in the morning in the weekend, to the non-existent printer in China. That's something really suspicious. Don't you agree? But if we don't see it, your machine will continue to do that, and you will, and this means just a bit more work for the security company, for the security office, and you don't have to brutally violate the privacy of somebody to get your security. You really have to make people defenders as well. The thing with, for instance, Nord, which is the complete difference, we simply don't want to know anything about any of the users. And this goes so far that we have no logging, and we have the biggest part of our development discussions are actually how do we not inadvertently know something about our users. So there's a lot of focus on not even accidentally knowing and identifying users. But that goes because of it's our product. If our users use our product, we don't want to know anything. So they are still in control of what they're sharing. And if they go to a website through our services and still log in with their credentials, which means they're making themselves identifiable, it's their decision. It should not be our decision. And the same, again, when we go back to the security company, you can talk to the people and then you can say, well, you can have you cannot have access to specific resources unless I can see these kind of things, because this is my threat landscape. This is the threat model I built around it. You're violating it. So this is why I need to see these things. You can talk with these people and you still can have people be in control of what they want to share.
I really like how you phrase that, because I think that, I guess for a lot of reasons, privacy is not protected, especially in the U.S. There's a lot more focus on privacy in the EU, but in the United States, we have these agreements and privacy notifications and things from these companies where basically it's if you choose to use the service, you have no expectation of privacy. And the expectation of privacy, I think, especially people who grew up on the internet, seems to be that they A, have no expectation, or B, don't know how to reclaim privacy because their entire lives have been put up there. So at this point, with the massive violations in privacy throughout the technical space, is there any way to put that genie back in the bottle? Is there any way to reclaim our privacy at this point?
It will take a longer time, I think. Nothing even, not even the upgrade of specs is fast. Even though we as people are getting used to having things fast, this will take some time. The first thing I think is what's really important is that people understand that their digital persona, the digital ID, the thing that's being violated with the privacy stuff, is actually, by and large, more real than their meat persona. And people don't like this when I say this, but I can prove it. When was the last time you ever had an interaction with a company? You're not even going to your bank anymore. Your digital ID is. There's so little interaction between you and the rest of the world as a person, mostly with your friends, your colleagues, that's about it. But all decisions, all transactions, almost all of them are done digitally. So your digital persona is, to all extents and purposes, more real than your physical persona is. If you were to die right now, I really don't hope so, but if you were, and you have all these automations set up, a lot of companies will not notice until somebody tells them.
Right.
You will, for them, you will still be alive. So it means people should really understand that their digital persona, that the digital ID, is horribly important. It's like people are stabbing it and beating it up all the time online, and people don't care. But if somebody pushes you in the streets, they all get worked up about it. So, but your digital persona is something you should really take care of. And this in the rest of the world, this is you. It's not this physical person behind the keyboard. No, your digital ID, the thing that needs privacy. That's the you. And once we got that realization back, we might start valuing it again. And I think that this should start with the educational system, because in the educational system, we're still in the consumption phase. We tell kids about how to use stuff and how to create an account and then how not to interact with other people. We tell them nothing about their digital persona, which suddenly at that age kind of splits off from their physical being, and which they are now nurturing. There's nothing about that. And we don't work with them and saying, okay, if you go to Facebook, it means all this nice stuff, or if you go to TikTok, all these nice videos, but it means something for you. And we don't teach them that. This is the first step. As soon as we got to this understanding that the internet and digitization means we suddenly have an extra part on our being, not our body, but we have an extra part on which needs protection, then we can start with that. Because then the realization will be that all these privacy infringing apps, they might not be so good, and you really should view it with the same thing as how to say it, bad hygiene. So right. People once they feel it really well, because hygiene means an attack on my physical body, and they should view that like privacy infringement is just also an attack on my body.
Right.
But
and
it will take a long time.
I think you're right. I think people don't recognize that they have a right to that privacy. They have a right to decide how their interactions online happen. They have a right to who takes their information and does things with it. And at this point, I don't think that is a well understood position. So I hope that is something that comes up, because we can't put things in place to really support that position until more people understand and believe that. So I hear that you have some interesting future developments. Where's your career taking you next?
I'll be joining Zerocopter, which is, of course, arguably the best hackers in the world. At least we run bug bounties with them. And we do a lot of security work for larger companies, but also if you have devices, if you have legal stuff, you can ask Zerocopter to have a look at it. For me, it's really a change of pace and going back to my, well, not really roots, but going back to doing some hacking stuff and really delving deep into the technical stuff. Having been mostly at the higher level and the process level for the last couple of years, I really want to get into my keyboard and see a lot of code again and that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. Saying that, I really love the people at Nord. It has the best. I'm sorry, I need to advertise it. If you want to start a career and you're in Europe, join Nord. There's lots of vacancies there, and it's one of the best jump boards for young people because they support you. There's this excellent vibe. It's fun. I can't say it any differently. It's fun.
That's great. Well, I've been a fan of NordVPN for several years, and used it personally, and so it's good to hear that the company itself has such praise from you personally. So I really appreciate you coming and talking to us today about privacy and security, critical topics, and you have such a unique and rich understanding of the topic that it's been well worth my time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today. I really enjoyed this topic. I hope you did too. Please make sure you check out our back catalog. We have about 3 years now of videos out there for you on some very interesting things. They run the gamut from privacy to security to compliance and kind of everything related to that. Talk to you again next time. Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of Security Metrics Podcast, click on the box on the left. If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. See you on the slopes.